Adversity is a little bit like fire. Sometimes it scalds or burns. It can even consume and destroy. But when we're empowered and when we can control the adversity, it brings strength, just like steel is tempered by the heat. It cooks our food. It gives us light, and it also can give us a sense of comfort, or gives a sense of comfort. And that's because when we're empowered and we have control, there's no fear. And that's, I believe, one of the most important things, is that in adversity, we do not have a spirit of fear, but instead keep the sense of power and love and a sound mind.
talk about different solutions to the problems we have today with intimidation, bullying, the use of threats, and in a way also the fear factor that comes in with terrorism. It's all the same thing, really. It's all the use of fear to manipulate others, to get your own way, to get status in today's society. And it's interesting that our society is changing, and we're going from a culture of law and order and family to a culture of a tribal or a pack mentality, with the importance of peer groups over family and over law. And in a sense, we're becoming very much what they call it an alpha dog type of society, where we have the role of a dominant male. A long time back, there was an article written about the rise of the barbarian male. And that's what we're seeing today, is the idea of the status, the celebrity, and the power is more important than the law, the family, and the society at large. So the problem we see now is the fear factor has created a society where threats or the use of intimidation, bullying, has become the norm of almost a lot of the social interaction that we have. And it's not just with kids. Usually we think of bullying with the problem with kids, but it's with adults too, and even the older people too. The elderly are also being threatened, bullied, and intimidated as well. So it's the whole culture is involved with this problem, and it's not a problem that's really going to be easily changed, because we're talking about changing our entire society in the direction that it's headed. But until it does change, we have to have ways that we can deal with these types of interactions when they're worked against us, and be able to maintain our self-esteem, our sense of respect, dignity, and in many cases, even the ability to survive in this type of culture. Survival might not just be like a direct threat, life or death threat, but surviving also means whether you're going to keep your job because of intimidation by others, bullying by others who are trying to either force you out or they're just trying to dominate, and you're in the way. If you lose your job, you lose not exactly your life, but you'll be losing your lifestyle. Also in a group of friends or social groups, if you become the one that's the target, then you lose your friends, you lose your social group, your social standing as well. So this is an issue that affects all of us, and we have to have some way of being able to survive through all of this and still retain a sense of self-worth, dignity, and also a sense of belonging as well. It's interesting that we think it starts in grade school, or nowadays you think it starts in preschool, but it even starts in just child care of the little ones, when they're into a setting with groups and others of their own age. You still start to see the use of intimidation, fear, what we used to call cliques, what we can also refer to as a pack or a tribal type social setting where you have those that belong, those that don't belong, and there's power groups based on those groups themselves. So, unfortunately, it's not the fault of the little ones. It's they're learning, either consciously or subconsciously, what they see going on around them, and they're just doing the same things. And I think the reason they do the same things is because it works. There's a sense of power there that exists, and also a sense of status, and also I think a sense of security, and that the idea is you're getting your wants and needs met through this process as well. So the dilemma, regardless of the age, is how do we handle this type of lifestyle, this type of culture that we're gravitating toward, and remain productive, and also have a sense of dignity and self-worth. One of the problems that starts at the beginning is when we come home from school, from daycare, preschool, somebody hits us, we're either told, hit them back, or report it to the teacher or report it to the authorities, and they'll take care of the situation and take care of the person that did the antagonism. That sounds good on paper, but in reality, when you get to these types of pack societies or alpha dog societies, the people at the top retain their power by violence. So when you hit back or strike back, the idea isn't that they're going to stop. It's now you've become a target of the rest of the group. And now we're going to increase our power by striking back at you and ostracizing you, in some way paying you back in multiples, regardless of the fact that you may have been justified in trying to stand up against what we were doing wrong. The idea is power. So now what we're going to do is we're going to strike back with even more power. The other problem is the reality of the situation is sometimes the authority that we go to is also helpless to stop the bullying. One is, it could be that the bully still has to stay in that environment. You can't throw the bully out, and the bully isn't going to change their behavior. So to the person of authority, it's what's the use of going up against the bullying when there's nothing that I can really do? The other problem is there's legal problems, in that if the authority figure goes up against the bully, then, and especially if it's written down, then the bully now starts to get a record of being a troublemaker, and then the parents might say, I'm not going to put up with having my child have the stigma of a record of bullying. I'm going to either sue you or pull my kid out. So the traditional responses don't work. For the first reason is that striking back usually is what this tribal society or alpha dog society wants, is that now they can lash out as a group against you and gain even more power. They'll get more status and prestige because now they're more powerful. And the other reason is that reporting to the so-called authorities doesn't work because, in a sense, they're either helpless to do anything about it, or they could become the victim of targeting themselves, whether it's in a lawsuit or ostracization within the society for doing something about this other person. So looking toward others and toward violence isn't really an answer because it just feeds into the whole problem, or it's just going to be frustrating because nothing is going to happen. Then what happens is the person feels a sense of disappointment, but also a fear of loss, but also a fear of insecurity, because the end result is, where are they when there's nothing they can do about it that'll be effective? And in a sense, they've become even more targeted, lost any social prestige. Sometimes friends won't be with them anymore because they don't want to be bullied either. Or the gang will say, you hang around with that kid, we're going to do it to you next. So the sense of loneliness, ostracization just increases. So there has to be something that's done within the person themselves that is able to reconcile all of these deleterious effects of bullying, such things as self-respect, your dignity, social standing, belonging to the group. All these things are at stake in these bullying and threatening or intimidation situations. For adults, it's even the loss of a job or status within a job, chances for advancement, peer recognition, status within the community. All these things are consequences. So you have to decide ahead of time is, what am I willing to sacrifice, or what value does my different decisions have on these various priorities? So to take control of the situation, one way is to say, when I look at all the consequences, am I willing to die on this mountain? How much of myself am I willing to put up for grabs, or willing to give up to continue or to instigate various reactions to this situation? And the reason we're saying this sort of like ancient phrase, am I willing to die on this mountain, is because realistically, we have to realize is that it's not about being right, even though we would like it to be right or correct. Life isn't always about being right, and there are consequences that you have to make, but there's also a set of values that have to be prioritized as well. And one of those values is even the value of survival. So we have to say to self, all right, I've been threatened, I've been bullied, I've been intimidating. Now how much am I going to put at stake with my various responses. Do I want to strike back? And then the consequences are I might become a target of the whole group. Maybe I'll be the one that's thrown out. Maybe I'll be hurt and targeted. Even if I win, then does that make me now the target that everybody wants to strike back at me because I'm disrupting the whole social order of this pack mentality or tribe mentality? Or can I let it go? And deciding either way is taking control of the situation. But most of the time, when you consider all the consequences involved, including survival or loss of jobs, loss of status, or becoming labeled a threat to the groups, the society, it's better to say, no, I'm not going to die on this mountain. I'm going to let it go. And I don't have to be right in this particular situation because my priority is I have to survive. I have things in my life that I need to do. If we're older, I have responsibilities of providing for my family. I can't afford to lose my job over this. Other times I have to be part of this social structure. I can't be off by myself. And for little kids, it's going to have to be maybe not quite so serious as far as the finances go or the social status goes, but it has to be, I still need to be going to school. I still need to belong to this group. And I'm going to have to willingly say, no, it's not worth it to push and try to be right in this situation. Instead, I'm going to decide by myself. In this case, I'm going to let it go. It's not that important to me. I am not going to die on this mountain. I'm going to keep going on and just let this go. And by saying, I'm going to let this go, you just took control of the situation. The situation no longer controls you. You control the situation by saying, its value to me isn't so high that I'm going to risk my goals, my status, even my dignity or self-respect by pursuing this. I'm just going to let it go. And this type of taking control of the situation is very powerful because it's now your decision and your input that now take control of the situation, and you're saying, I'm going to let it go. This is the most powerful factor of this idea of setting a priority of what is important and what isn't. Now, the nice thing about setting an idea of what's most important to me and what I can let go is that ahead of time, you can prioritize or anticipate what's going to be your response in certain situations and say to yourself, in this particular situation, I can let it go. But in this situation, no, I have to make a stand. I'm willing to die on this particular mountain. And by being able to think this through ahead of time, you're actually training, practicing, or role playing. And when the time comes that that circumstance arises, usually there's anger and emotion involved, and that's when you don't want to be thinking or trying to think, what should I do? When the anger and emotion is there, it's you want to have a predetermined decision, previously thought out, considering your own values, your own goals, your own standards of what you're going to do. So when that situation arises, of course the anger pops up and it becomes emotional, but you're able to say, no, I already thought this through, and in this case, I'm going to let it go. So it could be maybe you're physically being pushed around, and you're saying, well, I don't really need to fight back. I think just because somebody pushed me, trying to provoke me, isn't a reason for me to fight back. Or it could be people are calling you names or trying to, in some way, disparage your reputation. And you can think that out ahead of time and say, I can let that go. I'm not going to die on that mountain. It's not worth my taking chances of giving up my own priorities, goals, or status. And it's also not worth the time and emotional involvement to have to keep dwelling on this particular circumstance. It's that I'm not going to waste time with this. I have too many other important things in my life that I have to be doing, and I can't let these type of situations control me. This act of being able to take control of situations is very important, because time after time, these type of situations pop up, and if you give them priority when they're really not a priority, you do not do the things that you're supposed to be doing, and therefore it does become life-threatening or life-changing to you, because by your own choice, you chose to make this a time-consuming event in your life. So there's a lot of good reasons to be able to say, no, I am not going to let this situation take control of me. I'm not going to die on this mountain. Other times, you could pre-plan the idea that there are certain cases where I am going to make a scene. I am willing to die on this mountain, and I am going to react. A stereotypical example is that we're willing to defend our children. And if somebody's hurting our children, we're willing to go to violence to defend our children, or we'll do whatever we have to defend our children. So let's say it's a carjacking, or somebody grabs our child and tries to take them. So I decided ahead of time I will do everything possible to defend my child. When the situation pops up that someone tries to steal your car, your kids are in the car, you've already made that decision. I'm going to die on this mountain to defend my child. And in this case, split seconds count. You can't take a minute trying to think about what you're going to do. when split seconds counts, 1 second is even priceless. So in this case, you're reacting instantly, taking advantage of a maybe sudden surprise or sudden retaliation that allows you to successfully defend your child. Whereas if you just stood there thinking, what should I do? What should I do? The child could be gone. The car could be gone. The child could be gone while you're thinking about what to do. So there are times when you're saying, yes, I will die on this mountain. And what that does is it enables you to act instantly and decisively. And then afterwards, because you thought it out, you don't have the regrets. Because when you were able to calmly think the situation out, according to values or standards, you said, for this event, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. For this event, I'm going to die on this mountain. And then it takes away a lot of the guilt that maybe post-event circumstances might have, is because you said, no, I rationally thought this through, and right or wrong, I was willing to die on this mountain, and therefore I did it. In retrospect, maybe it was the wrong decision, who knows? But that's hindsight. So, at least with foresight, we're saying there are areas that I will react this way. There's other areas that I won't. Now, for areas of, say, less seriousness, carjacking, it could be something like somebody comes up to you at work and disrespects you in some way, or they trying to intimidate you, or telling lies about you. And ahead of time, you decide, if someone tells lies about me, someone disrespects me at work, I'm not going to die on that mountain. I like my job. I'm not going to let them take my job away from me. And I'm going to walk away and just let it go. I'm going to forget about it. I'm not going to allow my thoughts to be consumed with this event. And therefore, I'm not going to die on this mountain. I'm going to just walk away and not let it deter me from the things that I'm supposed to be doing and become a distraction in my life. And that's a typical instance where this idea is very effective. And the ability to have made that decision beforehand allows you to turn and walk away. But if you're still standing there, taking all the crap, trying to think, I wonder what I should do, instead of walking away, you might have allowed that whole situation to keep getting worse. So, for adults, that's just one instance where pre-planning is what allows us to maintain the things that we have. For little kids, it's the same thing. It's if somebody pushes them in the hole, they can pre-plan that. I'm not going to push back. Or if somebody grabs some of their lunch, they might decide, no, I'm not going, that's not worth my time and efforts to fight back. I'm just going to let it go. And they make that decision, they make it instantly. And the best part is that they're able to walk away. And then if it continues, now they have time to say, well, I also have plan B or plan C, pre-planned that if it continues, I'm going to do this. And I still might walk away, or maybe I'm going to switch tables, or maybe I'm not going to be at the same place anymore. But the idea of pre-planning your response is very important, because not only can you pre-plan an initial response, but if that doesn't work, you can pre-plan, well, what will I do for plan B? And what will I do for plan C? Because the reality is that we all know that everything doesn't always work the first time, but we want to have the security and not the fear of feeling helpless at that time. And by pre-planning, plan A, plan B, plan C, it's a chance to think it out, it's a chance to role play, but it also does is it also takes away the fear of various encounters. And you can pre-plan encounters that you see other people going through, or you read about it in the newspaper. You can talk with other people about it. You can talk with parents or other advisors about it. See what other people do. All these things take away the fear that occurs in this culture of intimidation and bullying and alpha dog pack mentality. It takes away the fear of that. Also important to realize that when we talk about consequences, and using such a heavy phrase as, do I want to die on this mountain? We usually think of living or dying as a 50-50 type of proposition. Is either I win, the other person loses, or the other person wins and I lose. So usually you think it's a 50-50 type of percentage on consequences. But the reality is that it's not 50-50, it's 2-1 against you of winning, because either you can win, the other person loses, the other person wins, and you lose, or in the process, you can both lose, or you could both die. So it's only 1 out of 3 are your chances of actually winning. So confrontation is unavoidable, but you have to consider the chance of being right or winning doesn't happen right or wrong. There's actually right or wrong, or you both lose. So violence isn't good, but it's not with the same odds of winning that you would think. There's an ancient Chinese philosopher, his name was Sun Tzu, and we're talking about winning and losing in strategy. He says, if you know yourself, you might win maybe a good part of the time. If you know your enemy, again, you might win a good part of the time. But if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you'll win all the time. And when you think about it, the idea is surviving. It's if you know yourself and your enemy, you know when to not even get into certain encounters. You know when to back off, or you know when to say, this isn't worth it. I'm not going to take the chance of dying on this mountain. There's another aspect to look at, and it's very serious concern. And that's when you decide that you can't take it anymore. I'm going to die on this mountain. I'm going to just totally give up. I can't take it anymore. I can't stand it anymore. I'm going to totally give up. And it's the decision I made, and that's what I'm going to do. Well, of course that's a decision, but there are other factors to consider, especially when the pain, the suffering, the adversity becomes so unbearable that you can't stand it. And when we look at history, and we see people who live not only around us, but also read about people who lived before us, we find that adversity is also something which develops character and perseverance and internal strength in ways that nothing else can do. And a lot of the people who have the most impact in society are those who have gone through terrible adversity, terrible extremes of persecution, came out of it, and were able to go on and do higher things, were able to touch the lives of other people because of the experiences that they gained from being in a situation where they said, oh, I'm going to die on this mountain, I can't take it anymore. We have to look at that too, is this experience going to have in some way a strengthening effect on me if I can get through it? So there's a proverb, an ancient proverb, and this says, as iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen the countenance, the composure of another person. And it's a interesting statement because it says, as iron sharpens iron. So I guess you saw pictures of, or watched a chef sharpening his knife, and they used what they called a sharpening steel. Looked like a little metal rod, and they would take their knife and they would skim it along the edges of the sharpening steel to sharpen it. So that's the idea of iron sharpening iron. And it's two hard things coming together, but one is sharpening the other. And the analogy here is that could also be that difficult experience. It's coming up against us, but what it's actually doing is it's sharpening us in ways that nothing else can sharpen us. And then it says, the proverb goes on to say, as iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpen the countenance, the composure of another person. And the idea is that other people around us and what they do to us also sharpens our countenance, sharpens our fortitude, creates in us a stronger person, a so-called sharper person, a person able to do things that other people can't. So it's interesting that they relate the interaction of people to the interaction of this iron sharpening steel on the knife, is that as we come together, kind of clash sometimes. Its effect on us is that that experience sharpens us, makes us, and takes us to a special place. And that's just one of the things that happen when we do go into adversity is when we're feeling like we can't go on, like the iron coming against us is too strong. We have to remember that that strong iron that comes against us is also shaping us and sharpening us through this experience in ways that softer materials, softer experiences can't. So there is a plus about being at the point of despair, is that the knowledge that it's taken us and creating us in us something that is going to be unique and special to us. And there's a purpose in the future for that. So often we just look at the things that we do. We call it like the acts of commission. The things that we do are what's important. But we also have to realize that there's also the acts that we don't do. We call it the acts of omission, the things that we didn't do, and that are also to be considered or valued as well. It's what didn't you do as well as what did you do. And when we look at what we didn't do, a lot of times we didn't do them because we couldn't do it. Either we didn't know it, or we didn't have the ability or the experience to be able to do those things we didn't do. And this is where the sharpening of adversity is from the things that we omit and changes the potential to be things that we commit or that we can do, is because we've been shaped. And our potential has changed from omission to commission, in that this adversity now increased our potential to be able to do things that we never were able to do before. So you'll notice, like, top competitors, they don't practice against easy people, people that they know they can beat. They practice against people that give them a tough time so that they can increase their abilities and increase their experiences. And by practicing against people that are even better than them, they learn to see, I need a plan A, I need a plan B, I need a plan C, but they would have never known that plan A wouldn't have worked, and they needed a certain plan B, and they needed a plan C if they didn't go into the competition or experience the adversity of going up against something that they couldn't make happen. And then they realize, wait, I have to change because this person can do this and I can't do it. So this is another area where you see top people or successful people going into situations where they know they can't handle it because they want to see, what are the plan Bs out there that I don't know about? What are the plan Cs? How can I make this experience become my experience, be able to not only do things differently, but be able to see things differently. Also, how can I get to a higher plane? How can I think out of the box? The way to do that is they have to experience things of other planes or other out-of-the-box experiences to know that these things exist, then they incorporate it into themselves. There's a good story. It's not like a joke, but it still is humorous in a sense. And it has to do with adversity and preparedness, but also being able to help others through the experience that you gain through going through trials and adversities. And the story is, there was this man who was walking along this path. He was out in the woods. Not many people would walk down this path. And there was a big pit alongside the path. And it had real steep stone walls. And if you fell down to the bottom, you couldn't climb out. Well, this man was walking along the path, and he saw this pit. He went over to look into the pit to see what it was, and he fell in. He lands at the bottom of the pit. He brushes himself up, looks upwards, and he could see daylight way above him. And he tries to climb up out of the pit, but the walls were slippery stone, and he couldn't climb up out of the pit. So he realized this is a place where not too many people walk by, and I could die down here. So he starts screaming for help, but nobody was walking by, so nobody came to rescue him. So he sat there for hours and hours, and here's some kids start walking down the path, and they're going to walk past the pit, and he hears their voices. So he starts screaming, "Help, help, I'm down in this pit." And the little kids hear the man cries for help, so they go over and go up to the edge of the pit, and they look down, they see the guy down there, and he starts screaming up at them, "Get me help, I'm going to die. Don't leave me here." And he starts getting hysterical, and he's screaming and yelling at these kids that they have to help him or else. And the kids start to get scared, and they just run away. So now the man's sitting down at the bottom of the pit by himself, and he's thinking, "Oh no, what did I do? I just scared my help away." So he tries climbing up the walls again. He still can't get out. So along comes a doctor. And this doctor walks by and hears this man's cries for help. And he looks down and he says, "How can I help you?" And then the man says, "I'm stuck in this pit, and I can't get out. You've got to help me." And then so the doctor looks down and says, "Are you injured?" And then the guy says, No, I'm okay, you got to help me." So the doctor says, "Okay." He says, "Well, if you're not injured, I really can't help you, but I'll see what I can do," and he walks away. So the man thinks, What's going on here? What's going on here?" So then, a little while later, he hears more footsteps coming down the path, and he yells for help again. And all of outside him, he sees a face peeking down at him, and it's a lawyer. The man starts screaming up to the lawyer, "You've got to help me, you've got to help me, I'm going to die down here." And he starts going hysterical again. And the lawyer says, "Well, I don't know what I can do for you right now, but here's my card, my business card." And he throws it down to the bottom of the page. He says, "When you get out, let me know. We'll sue somebody." And the lawyer walks away. So it gets dark. The man's sitting in the pit all night. Next day comes along. No help, no help. Nobody's walking down the path. Finally, late afternoon, and the man hears another set of footsteps walking down the path. So he starts screaming for help. Now he's completely hysterical. And sounds crazy. And a man looks down the pit, sees him at the bottom of the pit, and he says, "Hey, what you doing down there? You need help." And the guy's screaming, "Do I need help? I've been in here. Now, this is my second day. I can't get out. People have come by. Nobody's helped me. Nobody's sent for help. I'm going to die down here. You got to help me. You're the only chance I have for help. I'm going to die down here." And he's going crazy, screaming at this man. So the man says, "Oh, okay." And then all of a sudden, this man jumps into the pit and lands almost on top of the man, knocks him over, and they're both sitting on the bottom of the pit now. So the guy says, "Wow, that was a long fall," and he's brushing himself off. And the guy that was in the pit says, "What are you? You're crazy or something. Now we're stuck. We both can't get out of here. We're doomed. Look, these walls are unclimbable, and now we're both going to die." And the guy finished dusting himself off, and he just looks at the man in the pit and just says, "Don't worry. I'll get us out." And the man in the pit says, "What do you mean you'll get us out? It's impossible. No one can get us out. We're both going to die. You're stupid. You're a fool. What did you do jumping in this pit with me anyways?" And the guy says to him, "Look, calm down. Don't worry about it. I've been in this situation before." So, in a society that's filled with intimidation, so in a society where pack mentality, tribal mentality, clique mentality, alpha dog mentality, barbarian male dominance, domination occurs, is seemingly becoming stronger and stronger. We do see fear, and we do see intimidation, because that's how these type of cultures work, is fear and intimidation. And we have to be able, in some way, to preserve ourselves and our dignity, our sense of self-respect. And that is, one, by making value judgments as to what is really important to us and what we can walk away from. And by our own choice, being able to say, "No, this is not worth my time and effort. I'm not going to die on this mountain." And yet be prepared for situations when split seconds count, by deciding ahead of time, yes, in this case, I'm prepared to die on this mountain, and act instantly. And also, when it looks like all hope is gone, and that we're at from experience how to get out. And then we can be the one that jumps in the pit with somebody else and say, here, I can help you. I've been in this situation before. And there's another aspect of wanting to be right and forgetting about the need to be loving toward one another. And that's when we are wronged and we are being threatened and bullied. It's sort of that old saying of walk a mile in my shoes. And the idea of that saying is for us to feel compassion for others and to be able to have compassion even when that other person is against us or bullying us. And it doesn't make the situation correct on the other person's part. But what it does do is put us in control of this situation and gives us control by saying and by observing and by thinking, what does it take in that person's life to make them behave or act or do the things that they're doing? And when we think from the other person's shoes, or from the other person's place in life, you realize that perhaps there's a lot of pressures being placed on that person for them to do the things that they do or to become the way that they are. And then not being right and allowing a sense of compassion to come in takes away a lot of the pain, but it also puts us on top of the situation and places us above the situation as well. So that's another thing that we could do in these situations to take control of it, is to start to see from the other person's point of view and how that other person was molded and shaped, that they have to do the behavior that they are doing. And what it does is it separates the person from their behavior. And we realize that there is a person, maybe even a little bit like us, behind that behavior. And then we can judge the behavior differently than the person. And I think that's part of what they're saying when they're saying so often we want to be right than to love well.
when we talk about pre-planning our responses in a state of conflict or the presence of conflict or adversity, it gave us it gives us the ability to not think on the spur of the moment, but have pre-planned responses according to our ethics, our responsibilities, legal conditions, and other factors. So the idea is, well, how do we practice? Well, one, you could practice as a group, which is like role-playing, or someone brings up an issue and you talk about it, decide on possible ways of responding. The other way doesn't require a group, but we can practice by ourselves and on ourselves, and that's by just looking around us, looking at people around us, other people that might be in the same situation, or we could even read articles or see presentations about people who've gone through adversity and learn from them. And the practice on our part comes by saying to ourselves, what will my response be if I'm in that situation? So if we're looking at the news and we see a particular type of conflict that occurred, then we could say to ourselves, well, if that happened to me, what would I do? And how would I react, considering my goals in life, my responsibilities, legal issues, my own sense of values, and think it over. And then once we think it over, then we have a pre-thought or a pre-planned response to that particular situation that was based while we had time to contemplate the different ramifications. Or if we see other people going through difficulties, and instead of just kind of ignoring their problem, instead think, what would I do, or what is my reaction going to be if I'm in that same problem? So the thing we want to do in life then, which becomes empowering, is actually engaging in other people's adversities, other people's trials, other people's conflicts, and then naturally we can help and try to be of assistance, but when we engage, we want to use it for our own benefit and think, what is going to be my response if I'm in that same situation? The idea is that when we do come to the same situation, we can think, oh, that's what so-and-so went through, and this was going to be my response. This is what I'm going to do. So a split-second decision can then be made. And it turns out that the more you get involved, either directly or indirectly, with different types of crisis, and that crisis could be minor crisis, or it could be something that's very severe, something that's even life-threatening, or is life-threatening. All those circumstances can be practice tools, practice situations for us. The bonus is that the more we engage in other people and in their lives and in their circumstances, we develop a sense of empathy because we can relate. There's a difference between empathy and pity. And actually, we don't want the pity, but we want to empathize with people. So this whole process then of engagement through the crisis and trials of life actually takes us to a higher plane of empowerment, a higher plane of engagement, a higher plane of sensitivity, and therefore even love. The best part is the more we understand things, the more we engage, the more we become familiar, the more we have, say, plan A, then plan B if plan A doesn't work, plan C if plan A and B don't work. The more we have those type of responses pre-planned, the less fear we have in our life. The less fear we have in our life, the higher our capacity is to love one another. So adversity and the trials in it are therefore, in our practice for them, become empowering in themselves. We're going to work with both the exhale and the inhale to get the full cycle. And we're gradually going to stress the dynamics of the inhale. So we'll begin with the exhale. So to do a complete or almost complete exhale, we're going to use the natural process of a sigh. A sigh like we're just trying to relax, or we're exasperated. We're just going to do a deep sigh and feel the effects of the exhale, the biodynamics of the exhale when we sigh. So first we're just going to just do a deep sigh. And that's what we do. We just exhale. We just go, let's do another deep sigh. Okay. Now we're going to continue the exhale, almost like it's a follow through, until it stops on its own. And we're going to feel that when it stops, we can feel the exhale actually go down to the bottom of our abdominal cavity. That's how deep the exhale goes. So now do a big exhale and a big follow through till it stops. And at the tail there, you could feel the bottom of your abdominal cavity, right? Okay, let's do another one. And now that you can feel it quicker. Right? Again, a big sigh for an exhale, and you can feel that abdominal cavity. So this is the depth of the abdominal breathing that we're going to be using, is that it's going to go all the way down to the floor of our abdominal cavity. Now the inhale, we're going to use a natural process of an inhale that we do naturally, and at the beginning of like a yawn, when we yawn, the beginning of that is a filling of the body with air, or an inhale. So just do a big yawn and get the feeling of how the body fills up with air or inhales with a yawn. So just pretend you're tired and you just go, So your body actually expanded, and that's how your arms go out. It's like you're a living balloon. You just inflate with the yawn, and everybody does that. When they yawn, they just inflate, okay, with that inhale. Now what we want to do is tie the inhale and exhale together because that's the normal rhythm, but we're going to try and establish a cycle of breathing from the bottom of the abdominal cavity for the exhale and inhale cycles. So we exhale to the bottom of the cavity, and then when we inhale, we're going to try and draw the air up from the bottom of the abdominal cavity as well. So what we're essentially doing is we're going to sigh and then yawn. So for the purposes of training, we'll kind of sigh and then we'll do a yawn. So now it's going to take a few times to get the hang of it because this is what we're learning. So when you're ready, just do a big sigh and go, ah, and then a big yawn and go, now you could feel that cycle start at the bottom of your abdominal cavity, and it feels like your whole trunk of your body inflates. It is the feeling that you're going to get. Okay, so now without doing the visualization of the sigh or the sound effects of the sigh and the yawn, just go and just release all the air out till you hit the bottom of the abdominal cavity, and then just go open your mouth like you're going to yawn, and you'll inhale. Okay, good. So you can feel the deepness of the breathing.